Welcome back to our thought for the day. It's lovely to have you back with us. If you're watching from the church, we want to give you a warm welcome. And if you're watching and tuning in from the wider community, it's lovely to have you with us as well. Every day we're just trying to bring a bit of what the Bible says and bring it into the context of what we're all going through at the moment. And of course, there are lots of things happening around us. And one thing I do want to say at the beginning is we must make sure that we remember all those people who are going through other problems that are unrelated to COVID-19. Of course, lots of people have got the same struggles they had before this virus outbreak, and we must, as Christians, make sure that we don't forget those people and the traumas and the concerns they're going through. So why not reach out to someone who isn't directly affected by the coronavirus and actually let them know that you still remember and still care for them. One of my favourite cities in the world is Florence in Italy. I think it's beautiful and lovely for many, many reasons. And my wife and I, Andrea, were fortunate enough to go there in 2001. And I was particularly excited because we were going to land in Pisa, and then I was going to get a chance to see something I've always wanted to see, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The construction began in the 12th century and it stopped and started over about a 200-year period, and they've ended up with this tower that is leaning over, I believe, at about 4 degrees. And it's a living reminder, isn't it, of the importance of solid foundations when the weight of life comes to bear. And with that in mind, I've been pondering a story from the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew. The story was titled in my Bible as The Wise and Foolish Builders, and I'd like to read it to you. It's in Matthew chapter 7 verse 24 onwards. It says, "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. Streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because its foundations were on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority, not as their teachers of the law. And it's related to my Pisa story. You may be, of course, familiar with that story if you've ever attended church. And it's a story really of two men who are given no description, two similar men of two similar houses, two similar storms, but two very different foundations. On the surface, both these houses would have looked, in my mind at least, identical, the same in every way, until, that is, the storm came. When the storm came, the truth of both those houses was exposed. And that's true of life, isn't it? When our lives are shaken, when things interrupt our rhythm and flow and pattern, we begin to realise what we've built our life upon. And I guess many of us are experiencing that process at the moment. We're discovering what really matters in our lives. We're discovering actually whether the priorities we've spent so much of our time putting into position are actually worth it in the end. This story is a really wonderful one, for various reasons. First and foremost, this story is a warning from Jesus, a warning that there's one of two ways that life works. You can either build your life on your own wisdom, or the wisdom from the wrong place, or on the words of Jesus. In this story, the wise builder is the one who listens to the example and the life and the teaching and the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ and builds his or her life on it. That person is able to stand strong. The one who doesn't runs the risk of their life falling to pieces when life gets in the way and life is shaken. It's also a wonderful reminder that he or she that builds their life on the words of Jesus needn't fear the storm. And you've only got to reread those verses to hear just how violent that storm was, beating and crashing. And actually, even as that storm raged against the house, the person inside would have felt secure, because they knew they were on the right foundation. And a final thought, that actually Jesus is such a sure foundation that for the Christian we can begin to continue building our lives on him, even when everything is shaking around us, even when everything suggests we should just batten down the hatches and hide. This story surely teaches us that for those who have got the right foundation, even when the storm rages, we can continue to grow and build our character, our lives, the work God has called us to do. And I encourage you, if God has called you for something, to continue to answer that call and do what he has called you to do. And I guess as I finish this afternoon's thought, there's only really one question I should ask every single person watching. What is your foundation for your life? What have you built your life on? And is it strong enough for the days ahead? I believe Jesus Christ will never let you down if you choose to make him your foundation this afternoon. God bless you, and we look forward to catching up with you again next week for our thoughts of the day. And don't forget to tune in Sunday morning in the same way at 10:30 for our service. God bless.